8th Dan Aikido Billionaire asked a single dad to spar. He smiled, only if you promise not to cry. The entire arena fell silent the moment the billionaire stepped onto the polished wooden mat. Thousands of spectators rose from their seats, cameras flashed from every direction, and martial arts masters from around the world watched with absolute respect. He was an undefeated 8th Dan Aikido legend whose name had become synonymous with discipline, wisdom, and impossible skill. Few people had ever dared to challenge him, and those who did usually left humbled within seconds. But on that unforgettable evening, everyone's attention shifted toward a quiet man standing at the edge of the dojo wearing an old, faded gi that had been stitched together countless times. Beside him stood his little daughter, holding his hand with complete confidence. The wealthy audience laughed softly, convinced the exhausted single father had wandered into the wrong place. None of them knew the heartbreaking journey hidden behind his calm smile. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, second chances, and stories that touch the heart still matter, please like this video, share it with someone you love, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another inspiring story. The single father was Ethan Carter, a man whose life had been shattered years earlier when his wife passed away after a sudden illness. Overnight, he became both father and mother to his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Every morning before sunrise, Ethan delivered packages across the city. In the afternoons, he repaired broken furniture in a tiny workshop, and at night he cleaned office buildings to pay rent. Sleep had become a luxury he could rarely afford. Yet every evening, no matter how tired he felt, he smiled warmly at Lily and promised that tomorrow would always be better. Few people knew that before life tested him so cruelly, Ethan had once been a gifted martial artist. As a teenager, he had trained relentlessly under an elderly Aikido master who believed true strength came from protecting others rather than defeating them. Ethan possessed extraordinary talent, but after marriage and fatherhood he abandoned competition to build a stable future for his family. When tragedy struck, survival became more important than dreams. His black belt remained folded carefully inside a dusty wooden box that he hadn't opened in years. The International Martial Arts Exhibition arrived in the city during one difficult winter. Tickets were impossibly expensive, but a local charity organized free entry for struggling families. Lily begged her father to go because she wanted to see real-life heroes. Ethan hesitated, embarrassed by his worn clothes and empty wallet, but he couldn't refuse the sparkle in her eyes. Sometimes the greatest gifts parents give are memories instead of money. Inside the magnificent arena, giant screens displayed breathtaking demonstrations from masters around the world. The final event featured the legendary billionaire, Victor Hayashi, whose fortune had been built through global technology companies, yet whose greatest passion remained Aikido. Despite unimaginable wealth, Victor trained every single morning before sunrise and donated millions to youth education and martial arts scholarships. His reputation for discipline was legendary, but so was his pride. He believed no ordinary fighter could challenge his understanding of Aikido. During a public question session, Victor unexpectedly announced that anyone brave enough could step onto the mat for a friendly sparring match. The crowd remained frozen. No one wanted to embarrass themselves before the world's greatest master. Lily quietly tugged on Ethan's sleeve. She looked up with innocent eyes filled with absolute faith and whispered that her father had always taught her courage meant trying even when you were afraid. Ethan smiled sadly. He had no desire to prove anything, but he wanted his daughter to remember that fear should never control a person's life. He slowly walked toward the center of the arena. Laughter echoed through the audience. Some spectators mocked his patched uniform while others recorded videos expecting an easy defeat. Even the announcer struggled to hide his disbelief. Victor studied the single father carefully. He noticed the worn hands marked by years of hard labor, the exhausted eyes hiding countless sleepless nights, and the quiet confidence that could not be faked. Instead of arrogance, Ethan carried something much heavier, the weight of responsibility. Victor politely asked whether Ethan truly wished to continue. Ethan answered with a gentle smile that instantly puzzled everyone watching. He said he would spar under one condition. Only if you promise not to cry. The entire arena exploded with laughter. Commentators shook their heads, convinced the poor father had lost his mind. Social media instantly mocked the unknown challenger. Even Lily looked surprised before smiling proudly, because she knew her father never spoke carelessly. As both men bowed respectfully, silence returned. The first movement was so fast that most people barely saw it. Victor attacked with perfect precision, expecting the match to end immediately. Instead, Ethan stepped aside with effortless timing, redirecting the billionaire's momentum without using unnecessary force. Gasps spread across the arena. Victor attacked again with greater speed, only to find himself gently guided away once more. There was no aggression in Ethan's movements, only calm precision that reflected decades of forgotten discipline. For the first time in many years, the legendary billionaire realized he was no longer demonstrating techniques. He was being quietly taught a lesson. The silence inside the arena became almost unbearable. The laughter that had filled the room only moments earlier disappeared, replaced by complete disbelief. Victor Hayashi stood perfectly still, staring at the humble single father before him. Every movement Ethan had made was simple, graceful, and completely free of anger. He had not tried to overpower the billionaire or embarrass him. Instead, he had redirected every attack with the quiet confidence of someone who had learned that true strength was measured by self-control, not victory. Victor adjusted his stance and bowed once more. This time there was no pride in his eyes, only respect. He launched another series of techniques with greater speed and precision than before. The audience watched in stunned silence as Ethan calmly blended with every movement. His feet barely made a sound on the mat. His breathing remained steady despite the exhausting years that had kept him away from serious training. Every technique reflected the lessons his old master had taught him long ago, that Aikido was never about defeating an opponent, but about protecting everyone involved, even the one attacking you. After several exchanges, Victor suddenly lost his balance during a powerful throw. Ethan could have slammed him onto the mat and ended the match in front of thousands of people. Instead, he gently caught the billionaire before he hit the floor and carefully helped him regain his footing. The crowd gasped. That single act of kindness carried more power than any spectacular victory. Victor lowered his head. He finally understood why the quiet father had smiled before the match. Ethan had never come to win. He had come to remind everyone what martial arts were truly meant to be. The billionaire slowly asked Ethan where he had learned such extraordinary control. For the first time, Ethan spoke openly about his life. He explained that many years ago he had trained under an elderly master who believed character mattered more than championships. He had dreamed of becoming a respected instructor himself, but life had taken another path. When his wife passed away after a long illness, every dream had been placed inside a dusty box along with his black belt. Since then, every hour of every day had been spent working to give his daughter a safe home, warm meals, and hope for tomorrow. Martial arts had become a memory he could barely afford to revisit. As Ethan shared his story, giant screens showed Lily standing quietly near the edge of the mat. She wasn't impressed by the famous billionaire or the cheering crowd. She simply looked at her father with endless love and pride. Many people in the audience wiped tears from their eyes. Victor turned toward the little girl and realized that Ethan had already achieved something greater than fame. He had raised a daughter who believed her father was the strongest man in the world, not because he could fight, but because he never gave up. The billionaire felt a lump in his throat. The promise Ethan had jokingly asked for before the spar suddenly returned to his mind. Only if you promise not to cry. Victor smiled through tears that he could no longer hide. The arena understood the meaning of those words at exactly the same moment. Ethan had never been talking about losing a match. He had been talking about the emotions hidden inside every person who carried pain with quiet dignity. The billionaire stepped forward and embraced the single father in front of thousands of spectators. The crowd erupted into a standing ovation that lasted for several minutes. Even the judges, athletes, and reporters applauded without stopping. But Victor's greatest surprise was still to come. He announced that Ethan would become the head instructor of a new martial arts academy funded entirely through his charitable foundation. The academy would provide completely free training for children from struggling families, single parents, and anyone who believed they could never afford to follow their dreams. Ethan would receive a salary generous enough that he would never need to work 3 exhausting jobs again. The audience burst into applause once more, but Ethan remained speechless. He had spent years praying only for enough work to keep food on the table. He had never imagined life could change in a single afternoon. Lily ran across the mat and threw her arms around her father. Tears streamed down Ethan's face as he hugged her tightly. For the first time since losing his wife, he allowed himself to believe that tomorrow really could be brighter. Over the following months, the academy became far more than a place to learn martial arts. Children who had been bullied found confidence. Parents struggling with loss found friendship. Teenagers heading down dangerous paths discovered discipline and purpose. Ethan taught every student the same lesson his old master had once taught him, that the strongest person in the room is the one who chooses compassion over revenge and humility over pride. Victor continued visiting the academy every week. Although he remained one of the world's greatest Aikido masters, he often introduced Ethan as the teacher who had reminded him of the true meaning of strength. Whenever people asked about the unforgettable sparring match, Victor simply smiled and admitted that he had not lost to a better fighter. He had been humbled by a better human being. Years later, photographs of that famous embrace still hung inside the academy's entrance. Underneath them was a simple message that every student read before stepping onto the mat. Real champions don't seek to defeat others. They help others rise. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends and family, subscribe to the channel, and help us spread more stories that remind the world kindness is still alive. Before you go, please leave a comment with this special message: true strength begins with kindness. We'd love to read every one of your comments. As Ethan locked the academy doors one quiet evening, Lily slipped her small hand into his and looked up with the same smile she had worn years earlier. The road behind them had been filled with heartbreak, sacrifice, and impossible challenges, but it had also proved something unforgettable. Life does not always reward the strongest, the richest, or the most famous. Sometimes, it quietly rewards the person who refuses to let pain steal their kindness. And in the end, that is the greatest victory anyone can ever achieve.